Welcome to Historical Inaccuracies. In this series, I review movies and some of their historical inaccuracies. I don't go through all of them, just the ones I found interesting. 300, released in 2006, is a historical film depicting the leadership of Spartan King Leonidas during the Battle of Thermopylae during the larger Greco-Persian Wars of the 5th century. Directed by and written by Zack Snyder, here are just a few of the inaccuracies of the film. The Spartans did not fight alone at Thermopylae. They were part of a larger Greek army led by Athens. Their force was so small, however, because at the time of the battle, they were celebrating a festival called Carneia. And as with most religious festivals, warring was not allowed. So, to get around this issue, the Spartans allowed King Leonidas to take his personal guard to the battle, hence 300 soldiers. The Spartans were absolutely a military culture, but the depiction of their armor is wholly inaccurate. They would indeed wear breastplates and other protective gear beyond their capes, swords, and shin guards as depicted in the film. The same goes for their training. Was it grueling? Yes. But were the kids treated as they are in the movie? Absolutely not. Another interesting insult that Leonidas shares with one of the Persian emissaries is calling the Athenians boy lovers. What's interesting about this is that most of the Greek cultures at the time actually promoted this kind of relationship and celebrated it. It was by no means abnormal, and the Spartans themselves institutionalized it, for they felt soldiers would fight harder if they were, in love with the people they were fighting with, or at least cared for them deeply. Ephialtes, the Spartan traitor, was most definitely not a real person, and the person who he was loosely based upon was not physically deformed. In my opinion, this was an editorial note to show how the Spartans, the good guys, were physically fit, handsome, and had no physical deformities, whereas the one guy who was seduced by Persia was the exact opposite, and thus was subject to the Persian whims, unlike the strong Greeks. The depiction of Xerxes is also problematic in numerous ways. He was not a giant god standing at 9 feet tall, he did not transform after he became king, and there are no reports indicating that he was androgynous. In fact, many people claim that he had a beard at the time, as was the norm with Persian kings. While he certainly would have been adorned with gold and would have worn that at different festivals and times in his life, it's unlikely that he wore this on the battlefield. Lastly, the film depicts Xerxes as being a man in his middle ages, whereas in reality he was probably more like 20 years old when he invaded Greece. How would you perceive the film if Xerxes was a teenager as opposed to a middle aged man? Probably a little differently.